The topic today, as you noticed, is about the science of predicting and working with earned media. Sounds like a very academic topic, when in fact you will see, if we can come to consensus on what earned media is to begin with, I think we would have made some serious strides forward here. So let's start with me setting up the topic. What is it that we hope to achieve today? And then we will bring it to our distinguished panelists, who will then introduce themselves, and then we can have our discussion here. So when we talk about earned media, there are so many different perceptions, ideas, thoughts about what it is. For some, it is about press mentions. For others, it is the YouTube counter. For some, it is likes. For others, it is chart mentions. It's a whole gamut and a variety of things that people think about what it is. Fundamentally, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, it's anything that consumers do on behalf of the brands, right? These are all manifestations of their actions. Look at just this forum. Overall, in the last, several weeks, these are all the things that have happened regarding this forum, the interactive forum. Whether it is video views regarding the forum, whether it's uploads, tweets, posts, whatever it is, right? You can just see how much popularity there is in terms of people making the effort. We at Visible Measures, and I happen to be the Chief Analytics Officer for Visible Measures, we tend to spend most of our time dealing with videos. Earned media, of course, is much broader than just videos. There's all sorts of media, right? To give you just an illustration of how we think about it, just to give you one experience, and then we can sort of broaden that up when we talk with the panelists. This is an example of a site where people go to watch videos. And of those, some of those are in fact embedded in their videos from a brand. This happens to be one of the Nike videos in there. User decides to click, off goes, the video uploads, plays all the way through, buffers, and at that point, the consumer has the option to do many other things with this video. All of the sharing modalities, there are 10 to 15 different ways in which the consumer can take it wherever they want to take it, if they like it. Here is the first manifestation of earned, which is consumer action on behalf of the brand. The original video that was syndicated generated roughly 6 million views. And everything else, which was copies of this content that went wherever it went, derivatives, which is UGC that users created on top of it, created significant more viewership beyond that. That's earned media in action with brand video. For Nike, the real impact is the orange. In this case, orange is goodness. Roughly 600% incremental viewership that was generated through consumer effort when it all adds up at the end. Over 40 million views. That's earned media in action. That's efficiency, that's engagement, that's whatever you want to call it. For Nike, this is real. Are we together so far? This is just one definition of it, just to give you an idea of what the consumer experience is that generates this kind of effect. So does every campaign generate that kind of effect? Of course not. It varies. Charlie Bit My Finger has over 800 million views. It's not even a brand video. Nobody paid anything for it. It just went crazy, right? And you have video game trailers, and then you have film trailers, and you have all of those other things. Look at the numbers at the top. Orders of magnitude. Hundreds of millions of views to the Nikes, the Samsungs, which is in the tens of millions. And then you've got Bobby Flay making the perfect sandwich with Hellman's mayonnaise. That's 1 million or 2 million views. Everything has some orange in it though, because the consumers, whatever target audience is, find something interesting about it, wants to share and talk about it. That's orange. That's what we call earned media. So how big is this? Why bother? Why are we spending time on this? Over 20 billion views happened just last year. Roughly 2,700 campaigns worldwide. Because we track everything. We have all of this knowledge, regardless of whether we work with the brand or not, right? And it grows every single year. Consumer choice and earned media is increasing every year. More familiarity coming around with the brands, advertisers taking more risk, more chance. Everybody wants to have a shot at having the bragging rights that they have the largest YouTube counter. You heard that? CMOs running over to their YouTube channels looking at the number. I got the big one. They used to do that 3 years ago with likes. Now it's the counter. Next big thing, who knows what that will be. Maybe it will be the pins. All right, so there are two schools of thought today. I take roughly 10 to 15 meetings every single week with brand marketers and agency counterparts. There's one group that says earned media is just plain random. It happens or it doesn't happen. I have no control over that. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Okay, that's one extreme. There's the other extreme that says we have completely cracked the code on earned media. Okay, what's that perspective? That says you have to do one of four things. Throw a bunch of cute babies in the video, or have celebrities do some interesting stunts, or get the animals to do strange and weird things like talk, or have a lot of women with short skirts. And you've got it made. You've got the best content you could ever have, that's it, and buy a lot of true views on YouTube. Have celebrities tweet every 5 minutes or 5 seconds, if so, they might. Pay your fan base, schmooze with your influencers, throw blogger parties, and boom, you have the winning earned media viral video of our times. Or get Ellen to do a selfie. And you've got your instant 3 million tweets. Until you find out that she's married to her iPhone. Does anybody know about that? Yes. So who is the winner here? Obviously, life is not that simple. When you have such extreme perspectives from those who think it's random to those who think they know everything, that is when you need a distinguished group of panelists who can objectively tell you what the reality is. The reality is somewhere in between. But these people are not afraid to speak their mind today, and they will. So with that, let me pass it on to our panelists. What I would say is that the science behind all of this is all relative. What is it that we know about this thing called earned media? We know a lot about paid media. We've been doing it for 100 years. But this is a new animal, completely new animal, because we are completely at the mercy of the consumers. And therefore, what is it that we know? And that's the question, right? So there are several things. Is this behavior measurable? Do we know how to distinguish good from bad? Do we have any best practices? Is there any empirical evidence how this thing works? All of those things we want to explore. So let's go on with the panelists.
Hi there, Kate Sirkin, Head of Research for Starcom MediaVest Group. I spend most of my time developing capabilities for the planners and buyers within SMG to spend their client budgets most effectively. And earned media now has reached the point where it truly has earned a place in that contact list optimization set that we use when we're working for our clients. We have many of the top CPG and consumer electronics brands who have taken advantage of the opportunity to really strategically drive earned media. And we'll be talking a bit about that in the next hour or so.
Hi, everybody. Bob Shetty with Digitas LBI. I head up media, social, and content at the agency. And in my past lives, I'll give you a quick earned media tour of my bio. I actually started off on the client side working at BMW, headed up media at BMW, but it was at a time we were starting to do things like product placements in James Bond films and eventually the BMW Films project, and kind of became a way, even back in those early days, to try to do things outside of paid media. Spent some time on the publisher side as well, which was really interesting to kind of watch on a daily basis the circulation of content at large scale and look at content publishing on that side of things. And today at Digitas LBI, we're really thinking about how to bring the whole idea of paid media, social, and content really close together.
Okay. I'm Marty Baker, and I'm the Senior Manager of Global Digital Content for the Hershey Company. And I work with a great team of digital senior managers. And we are the digital stewards of these incredible brands, from Reese's and Hershey bars all the way to Jolly Rancher and Twizzlers. And that entire portfolio really runs through basically 4 of us. And it is a tremendous job. Basically, I go to work, and every conference room we have is filled with bowls of candy. So I'm in a coma by hour 2. But previous to that, my career has been spent in advertising agencies. I started in Saatchi. I was there for about 9 years, mostly working on cars. So you can see the connection between cars and candy. And I also worked at the Martin Agency as a contact creative director for 10 years and worked on like Altel and Bank One. But my big thing has always been creativity. How can we make a message smarter, work more engaging, and have more effect? And so that's basically my background. And I didn't want to upstage this wonderful panel, but I am wearing orange shoes today for Southwest and also for the lift, as you know, in our earned media. So, thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Kate, let me start with you. We're gonna first just set the basic stage about what is this earned media and the excitement around it, and then build further into what really drives the engine in terms of how you get predictability and so forth. So Kate, how do you define earned media for your clients? Is it measurable?
So I define it in a couple of different ways. I think about it, first of all, from the consumer's perspective, and it's about just anything that they want to share. So if you think of the things that have been most popular and shared recently, they're things that are humorous, things that are newsworthy, things that are incredibly emotional. And technology has just allowed us to share those more easily and in a more scalable way today. I think from a marketer perspective, the definition of earned media can vary again. It can be, from many of our big advertisers, just a new way to make the marketing budget work harder. As media costs continue to increase, people need to, or marketers need to be able to reach more of those at reasonably efficient budget levels. But it's also a way that they can embed their brands into the life and entertainment habits of many of their consumers. I think that's really important. What we want to be producing as an advertising industry is content that people want to watch and want to share. And there's some great examples of that. I know in the video that Seraj showed as people were coming in, some incredibly powerful videos that consumers just truly did want to share and watch over and over again.
Baba? I know you spend a lot of time with the CMOs, and in the dialogues and the conversations you're having, do they care about this topic?
They care about it. I think they care about it in the context of effectiveness, of what actually works. And I think there's a lot of promise around earned media, and I think there's been a lot of disappointment as well. There's a great Forrester report that just came out by Nate Elliott, and I think it captures a little bit of this. It's really about social relationship management, but it talks about kind of the overall disappointment that a lot of marketers have with the tools and the expertise around social relationships, broadly speaking, earned media specifically. I think one of the things that CMOs really want is some sort of a framework for how you think about this. And one of the things we try to do is think about earned media in terms of kind of a storytelling framework. And there's a few different things you can do. You can think about engaging with conversations, with messages, or with experiences. All of those have the ability to generate earned media as long as they're done well. I actually had a great experience myself. Let's generate a little bit of earned media in the room right now, shall we? I was leaving a venue yesterday in town here, and has anyone else had any trouble with transportation these last couple of days? Has that been a thing? Pedicabs have never looked so good as they've looked in the last 48 hours. But I was leaving one venue, classic, like trying to race over across town to something else, looking for a taxi to jump into, and a guy comes over and says, I know you want a taxi, but would you, as an alternative, mind driving this Tesla Model S to wherever you're going? And I was like, damn, I have to drive a $95,000 all-electric car, the 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds? Okay, twist my arm. So look, extraordinary experience created by that brand. I'm telling all of you about it right now. I've told a bunch of people. I will probably tweet something about it. But a great experience that was constructed that was completely irrelevant, incredibly welcomed. I don't know how many standard ad impressions Tesla would have to have imposed on my screen before I had the same kind of reaction that I did to that one experience. But anyhow, sorry. So it's conversations, messages, experiences, and kind of a framework for how to think about being effective.
Excellent. Marty, well, why the excitement around earned media at Hershey's?
I think the excitement is the idea that the tremendous velocity and volume of sharing is just astronomical. Even to us, I can tell you from my experience on a lot of brands, I know pretty much if I put up a Reese's brand and a recipe on Facebook, what I'm going to get in terms of stories. And often, at one point, I remember, I think it was over 60,000 likes for a cake. So that is just wonderful to me. But I think that for me, the fact that I call it the sharing economy, that people are willing to share, and it doesn't take much. Sometimes it takes a button, but the idea that someone is turning a regular fan into an advocate, whether it's just through pushing a button or more robust ways, is just wonderful. So I'm so excited about that, because though we define basically earned in many ways, if you equate it with some version of free or incremental, free has always been a strong word since the beginning of time. The first rock was free. So it is a benefit to us.
Excellent, great. So on the topic, Baba, as you pointed out, the effectiveness question really is the one that is top of mind. And that question gets asked a lot in the meetings that I do as well, which is, okay, I get all this free media, but so what's it worth? What does it do for me? Like, does it really move my business forward? And I think it's a very relevant question. I'll pass it on to you, Kate, because I know you've looked into this topic. What have you found?
Well, over the last 25 years, since I've been involved in any kind of marketing effectiveness research, we've found that anything with a consumer endorsement, it works harder than just a regular paid media ad. We've done lots of work identifying whether that's an online consumer endorsement or a regular, conversation that we've just had today. One. And I think, the benefit of anything online is just the scale of it, but the power is equal across those two different things. We've done lots of work across other online sharing capabilities, such as work with Share This, where we found significant increases in purchase intent, in coupon downloads and recipes and directions to stores and things like that, when it's shared from somebody who's in that same consumer segment as the final target. We've done lots of work to understand in the consumer electronics industry to see if any share is worth more than just a traditional exposure, and it absolutely is. What sharing does is provide that added advocacy and endorsement and relevance to the consumers that on both sides of the sharing that they're seeing. So absolutely, it's more effective. It's just challenging sometimes to make sure we can optimize it and generate as much value as we can for advertisers.
Baba, you did some of this content, experiments, explorations, and so forth, way before many have. This content thing has become much more hot now, more recently, but you were there, at least 15 years ago. Can you tell us, how did you measure success at the time when you were doing things with BMW and others?
So those were super early days, but we had this notion that it had to be a good thing to have a consumer welcome you into their attention span and then talk about you and potentially share you, though the sharing mechanisms were a little bit less advanced back then. But we found some remarkable things, and let me talk first about effectiveness. The single metric that we kind of, at the time, focused in on for the BMW Films project, and for those of you guys who did not know, it's a branded 6 to 8 minute long films, complete popular entertainment narratives. There were no selling features of a product for a potential buyer. It was all about entertainment. But the thing that we measured was actually, we actually called it BMW Minutes at the time, so kind of engaged minutes of viewing, and then did a media equivalency of what would we have had to pay to buy that. Mm-hmm. And what was remarkable about it is, you did these the research, for pre-post exposure. And things across the board, all these brand attributes moved up for the exposed group, even on attributes that we didn't talk about at all in the films. How safe was a BMW? That's skyrocketed. And it seemed to me, the general kind of philosophy that came out of it for me was, there's enormous benefit for marketers to kind of have a little bit of humility, try to do what is on the consumer's agenda first, as opposed to their own, and present content that is that matters to consumers, and positive results will happen.
Excellent, great. Marty, any recent successes at Hershey's in some of the programs that you've been doing?
Yes. So we've had a tremendous success in a program we started last year. Reese's has a relationship with the NCAA. We are the official candy of the NCAA. Which is, I'm happy, but there's also the official ladder of the NCAA as well. But we have leveraged a wonderful relationship, and I will say that most of this relationship is based in merchandising on the store level, but we have a wonderful opportunity in digital to do something. And we created a microsite called Let's Go Reese's, and it was populated with a number of things that we thought would be interesting to our fans. And one of the biggest pieces of real estate was video. So over the last year and a half, I've created about, with my team, 30 videos at colleges around the country, both in basketball and football. And I'll tell you the challenges. The challenge on one side is that you have a unique experience at these schools, but we cannot shoot the players, we can't shoot the game, we can't shoot the coaches. So what we have is just food, fandom, and the fun of the iconic college itself. So we've been to, it's a hard job. I went to Duke in Florida, Kentucky, Austin for football and Syracuse recently. And what has been so wonderful is that we got really some nice content. And I found a wonderful host from Second City that had the ability to relate to people as an average person and enjoy the fact that Reese's was involved. And the challenge for me to set up was, we have this wonderful content, but where does it go? Where do we put this content out? And one of my instincts and one of my senses was, and we can talk about this later, was that our organic channels, as large as they were, Reese's at the time was about 10 million fans, we weren't going to get the reach that we wanted and the eyeballs on the content. And so, I don't know if you want me to go through some of the stuff as we go through it, but when we first launched the program, we got an okay response on our organic sites. And I had the good fortune of hooking up with a company, I'm trying to remember the name now, Visible Measures. And they had a plan for us very quickly, using a wonderful technology, and the results were completely astounding. And I can tell you the top line results, and we've done it, we call phase 1 and phase 2, which was football and basketball, but we went from, I would say, very minor views on organic sites to over 2 million views through Visible Measures' ability to put your content to the right people at the right time. And that was a huge win.
Is this the time we're all supposed to do our Visible Measure stories, Seraj?
Yeah, is there a pattern? I've got one too.
You're not obligated to talk about Visible Measures today. This is supposed to be an open forum. So, Marty, is there a secret recipe here in how this really works in getting the consumers to relay the message? While you're on that topic, you might as well.
The secret recipe to me is if you could get Grumpy Cat and the Harlem Shake, which was the third most or fourth most watched video last year in 2013. And then the Fox video was the other one. I think the recipe for me has become the fact that I look through the lens, I look through two lenses. I look, the lens of the company, which obviously needs to get messages across about their brands, new product introductions, changes, whatever. But I look through the lens of the consumer, and my lens has always been, what would they want to make a choice to watch? Because if a commercial is interruptive and they have no choice, what if they did have a choice, which is what the whole goal, it's basically a choice economy. What would they want to watch, and how long would they want to watch it? And I know I'm not going to get everybody, let's say with NCAA and sports, but I achieved a tremendous amount by having the recipe of good content that I think would work well with the consumers that are interested in that type of content. So I look at that content and I really match it up with the things that we do at Hershey, from mind modeling to understanding what people like, to just actually anecdotal and actually the data that some companies have about what people are looking at. So we know what's trending. So, and I'll give you a sample. If you're someone like Home Depot, you can create anything from long form to short form if it helps somebody build a dream in some form. And they do very well on Vine. And for us, a lot of stuff in terms of video can be recipes, because the amount of recipes that people create at Reese's, Hershey's products is incredible. So anyway, the recipe is understanding the consumer's desire to make a choice of something they're interested in.
Got it. Baba, is there more to this in terms of what the secrets are here and what works?
For our Motorola client, we had a really challenging introduction last fall of a new phone, the Moto X. And the Motorola media team, we're the media AOR for Motorola. And so what we did was we had an online video strategy where we knew that one of the things that was going to happen was there was going to be a new iPhone introduced. And we very carefully benchmarked kind of what it took to get category prominence, especially given what we knew Apple was going to do that week. And Actually, you guys, we worked with you guys, but you guys also measured the result in the Ad Age viral video charts that you guys power. It was a good week for branded videos that week. That was the week that Chipotle came out with their with Scarecrow. I think it was also that Guinness wheelchair television spot for those guys who know that. A great piece of work. And then the new iPhone videos as well. But that week, the Moto X Motorola video was the #1 branded video that week. And I loved the headline in the Ad Age article, which said, "What new iPhone?" So our clients, I think, were quite pleased with that. But that the thing that I think that example kind of illustrates is kind of the entire topic of this panel, which is, can you predict earned media? It's not a perfect science. It's highly imperfect. It is more predictable with many different objects, many different initiatives over a long period of time than it is with any one thing. In fact, that's one of my kind of pet peeves right now in the industry is I think we're so enamored by individual objects versus the whole system. I would say a system is American Express, Open, or Small Business Saturday. Well, there's many things in a publishing system that takes place over a long period of time, understanding an audience, and I think that's where this all works best. But getting back to the Motorola example, that was very carefully planned out. That was very carefully orchestrated in terms of great content itself, but also a great audience strategy around that content, benchmarks against what it was going to take to succeed, and then the execution of that, analytically driven and predicted.
Excellent, great. So this is now the beginnings of the flavor of what is knowable, what can be understood, what are the right practices, which leads me to the question to Kate. So Kate, is earned media plannable?
Absolutely. Again, to re-quote Baba, it's not perfect science yet, but it's certainly a long way from where we've come from before. It's a combination of 4 different things. You obviously need to choose the right content, and we've got really good guidelines based on 10,000 at least videos and campaigns from Visible Measures. We need to know what type of creative it is, what's the topic, what's the emotion level, where does it fit into a consumer's life, what's the associated media spend in paid and in earned, what's the flighting strategy, what's the analytics and measurement approach that we'll use as we start to put that on air. And all of these things, we've managed to work with Visible Measures to build a planning system called Contagion. I know there was lots of controversy when we developed that name. I loved it, but some people thought, Contagion, if we think about, are we trying to spread viruses throughout the system? But actually, viruses in a good way, in the fact of earning media impressions for our clients' brands. So I think it absolutely is, and over time we will start to get the predictability more and more accurate. But it's not enough now to kind of just throw money out there and say, I'm going to try, fingers crossed, to get some earned. We can absolutely help clients and advertisers to figure out the best pieces of creative, the best associated media plan around it, the best flighting strategy to optimize that campaign. I think the other piece of it to me that's very important is when we work with our advertisers and they say, I want an earned to paid ratio of a Volvo or an Evian or a BMW Films or a P&G, thank you, Mom. And we can kind of backtrack in the system to say, what's it going to take to do that? You're going to have to be more risky with your creative. You're going to have to support with online video paid spend. And you're going to have to flight it this particular way or that particular way. So, the science works on both ends. How do we strategically plan it, and then how can we make sure that we're developing creative that's really going to drive against it? It's interesting, I've been on the awards jury circuit for the last month, it feels like, and so many of the campaigns now that are looking to get the top honors of this year have got strategically planned earned media. So it's definitely not something that's just in the background now. It's the most effective use of it is being really done strategically and measured and amplified most effectively.
It looks like advertisers are becoming more proactive about this thing, right? Baba, there is this notion going around in the marketplace as I spend time with the advertisers. There is a perspective that somehow earned media is about being in the moment. That this is one perspective that Kate has, which is I have to do all this planning ahead of time. I can make it predictable. I have the benchmarks, and I can go in the market and set the expectation right. The other perspective is it is all about what is happening now, so to speak, the Allen selfie. Seems like it just all happened in the moment, and boom, magic happens. Is there no planning required there, and how does that reconcile with the contagion planning that Kate just described?
Yeah, great question. There's so much conversation, I think, about the term real time, and I think a lot, some misperceptions around it. The feed as a way to consume content, as a way that people make sense of the world and are exposed to content is so important. And what's really important is to be in the feed, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it is I think it's a misperception to really think about the idea that everything is reactive. I think overwhelmingly, even for things that have the appearance of being real time to the end consumer, there's an enormous amount of planning and strategy work that goes on behind the scenes well in advance. Mm-hmm. And there's one particular client situation where, in the course of 5 minutes, a remarkable sequence of activities happened. So there was social analytics work that said, okay, we see a spike in a particular theme, in this case around millennials, and we then decided to insert certain content into the conversation with both paid and unpaid distribution, and participated in that theme, all within 5 minutes. But that content was pre-existing. That entire scenario was anticipated in advance, mm-hmm. and staffed for it and planned for in advance. And that will happen, but I think that is more the exception. We also have a thing that we have started using from our analytics team, an early warning system. So something that says, look, if there is, if there are things that tell us, signals that things are going outside an expected range of activity, where the teams are alerted and they can do something. So we're getting more efficient at that, but that's still, I think, the exception rather than the rule. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, great. So at this point, what we have is, as you can tell from the discussion that has happened so far, one, greater recognition from the advertisers that there is some merit to this thing called earned media, that the fact that consumers taking control is producing some effect, measurable, it does have value, it does have impact, there's incremental impact and so forth, measured in terms of effectiveness, the way KPIs are. Marty, let's speak from the brand's perspective, right? Is earned media reached a resonance level where somehow all of a sudden the briefs that are being written by the brand managers already have earned media as one of the KPIs? Is that kind of a done deal? Is it happening?
I'm going to answer with a simple word, no.
There you go.
And it's not, all the brand managers at like Hershey's are very, very good. And one of the challenges, they understand our digital ecosystem very well, and our model is, it's paid, owned, shared, and earned, all part of the system. So they understand what owned is in general terms. But Hershey has been a TV-centric company for a long time. And what has happened is they understand TV in a way that's very scientific. Mm-hmm. So when you're applying science to the digital responses, they're seeing impressions, they're seeing stories, they're seeing that kind of thing, but they're not connecting with it yet And what our job to do is the digital thing is to commercialize it within the organization so that they can get an understanding. And I can simplify it even totally. It's like, if I had $1 to spend, why should I spend it with Marty? And in why? And with TV, they know what they're getting. They can split markets. They can reach different people. I can do the same thing, but I have to qualify it by saying that I know that I can get eyeballs, but does that eyeball lead to demand creation? And that's the big thing and I know that many of you, it depends on what size of company you're involved with. Some companies have to do their strategic planning a year in advance and the money's accounted for. So if I want to bring in an earned media component, or at least a paid component to help lift it off, that is not planned for. So what I'm trying to do is find ways, and we do a test and learn model, to bring paid as a leverage for earned. And I think that's what I've learned, that we can get tremendous results for that. And now I have to make the connection between all those eyeballs and the sales of candy.
Yep. That is correct. I think that challenge remains for many of the new emerging models, and earned media is one part of it, right? In terms of figuring out, does it truly generate demand? For today, let's summarize this. There's clearly science behind earned media. Even though we may not have fully mastered it yet. We do not make the claim, do we?
No.
We do not make the claim that we, or anybody for that matter, has yet conquered it. There is a lot to be done. This is truly still embryonic. But there are a few things you have to keep in mind. It is not totally random either. We do have the ability to measure. This is nice to know that there is a lot of measurable, quantifiable tools available. There is a way to benchmark. You can tell today whether your campaign is doing better than industry average. You can do that. Somebody actually asked that question, how do I know whether my campaign is really doing well? Well, yes. There are contexts within which, categories, genres, you can compare at any level you want. The other thing you have is best practices. You know when certain things or certain collection of things are working better. Take, for example, what kind of benchmarks do we have? If you are running a campaign around big public sporting events, they tend to generally work better. Consumers are very enthusiastic at the time, and therefore in an excited state, they are ready and willing to go do stuff. So campaigns in general around that, on average, do better, right? Benchmarks, what do we have? Well, teasing content ahead of the event tends to work better. Just look at its sample of 300 campaigns around Super Bowl. It will tell you. The advertisers are not stupid. Why are all of them actually teasing content more so now than they did 5 years ago? It's because there's data available to prove it works better, right? So you have benefit of things like that. Finally, empirical evidence. Stuff that Kate was pointing to, the contagion and the planning tool. That was ambitious. And it is open to attack. When anybody says, we can predict, what the hell are we predicting? Well, we're predicting essentially a band. You always predict a band. You cannot predict it's going to be 56.6% for the campaign you're going to run next month. No, you don't have that level of precision in this business yet. But when you have large data sets of tens of thousands of campaigns, there is potential there to absolutely nail that within a certain band. And that's essentially how far the industry has come so far. Have I accurately represented? That's really where the state of the art is today. There is a lot to be conquered, there is a lot in the creative and all the other things that one needs to explore, but that's something for another day. Thank you for joining us today.